Bruno spazzing on this motherfucker.
Mic check. Okay, they could hear me now. Okay, hold on. That's odd. Okay. All right. Good night, everyone. For some reason, I'm not able to see the overlay on screen, but I will have that sorted in a bit. Um, Tonight I have Samson, the great, the mysterious, the enthusiastic Samson. You have to share a few words. Samson, tell us about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell me. I usually ask my guests how the week went, but I guess you could tell us about last week, just a little bit, and then we'll get
Uh,
into what we want to talk about.
okay, I said I'm Samson Wilson. I'm currently doing my bachelor's degree in psychology, with an emphasis on health psychology. I'm very passionate about psychology and philosophy. That's what I'm really working towards. And basically, I love to read into these topics and see what's going on. My favorite author so far is Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. Because he brings out a side of different topics that I personally could not imagine. And last week was very interesting. It was very calm and cool. Nothing nothing much going on. But this week has started on a very high pace. But it will be over soon because time keeps on going, so everything has an end to it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what my grandparents used to tell me whenever I'm going through a hard time or anything. They always tell me it all comes to an end. Everything has a start, everything has an end. So, okay. Um, right. So you indicated that you have a passion, a strong word, for philosophy and psychology. I'm tempted to ask, like, what does that stem from? Where did that come from? What did the fascination begin for you? And why do you think
Well,
and why do you think is such a psychology in general is such a popular topic or program?
um, let me start with philosophy. From a young age, a younger age, because I'm still young. From a younger age, I've always had a interest in understanding why things are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the basis of basically why people act the way they are, but why the reasoning behind things, you know. And I always wanted to look at things at a deeper level, you know.
Right.
You know, for example, when it came to simple, not simple things, when it came to things, for example, anime, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I I wouldn't just look at the like the from young I would not normally look at anime just for entertainment. I'll look at it for entertainment, but
Mm-hmm.
not solely for entertainment because I understand that the Japanese, the reason why they originally, I understood this from a young age, not for research but just for
Mm-hmm.
meditation upon certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the conclusion that these people aren't just making that for just for to entertain people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always this philosophical meaning behind certain characters, why they act, and different motives towards the action, especially when it comes to villains
Mm-hmm.
and the plot of a
Mm-hmm.
certain arc or the entire anime and all. They try to bring out some kind of philosophy to the readers because you know it originates in manga or
Mm-hmm.
the viewers of anime. You know, they try to bring out this type of philosophy. For example, a very popular thing is Full Metal Alchemist. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to equivalent exchange, that in itself, you can take that in any direction and do whatever you want it.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
because once you put in, you must get something out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
That energy is never destroyed, it just changes to a different form.
Right. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Um when it comes to psychology, people are fascinated with psychology because psychology is all around us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And psychology is not something, the science of psychology is new. But the concept of psychology is not new because before psychology was science, it was a philosophy, it was metaphysics. It was something that people used to always look into. From as you could go back further than far as Plato, Aristotle, and these Greek philosophers,
Philosophers.
and all
Okay.
the rest. You know, they themselves they always try to study human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But as but but what made psychology come out of the realm of metaphysics and philosophy to the sciences is the ability of it being measured to a certain extent by empirical evidence, but not all concepts can be
Mm-hmm.
done. Like for example, the subconscious cannot be empirically investigated; is more theoretical, but it makes sense to people because you can see the adaptation in reality, but it's a abstract concept. It's not really empirical to say that you can measure
When you
it
say
if any.
sorry to cut you off there, but when you say empirical,
Uh,
what do you mean by that exactly?
um,
When you
when
say
I mean
mm-hmm.
empirical, I mean like it could be measured. For
Okay.
example, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you cannot measure how much a foot weighs or how long a foot is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thoughts
Understand.
are abstract, you know, in the imagination, in the
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
So these things cannot be measured in any kind of way.
Okay.
What what can mostly be done is in neuroscience when you study the brain.
The
You could
physical,
see
as in the
certain,
physical
yeah,
brain, the
the
physical.
physical brain, yeah,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the physical brain, the organ.
Mm-hmm.
You could see certain correlations of when somebody might think if a certain region of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
see how the the body and the mind have a connection,
Mm-hmm.
but there is no actual way of you actually taking a thought and measuring it, or actually proving the subconscious in a physical sense. It
Mm-hmm.
always, when it comes to the psychodynamic,
Mm-hmm.
psychoanalytical part of psychology, is more on the theoretical side. But when it comes to other parts like the behavioral, the other spectrums or the other models
Mm-hmm.
of psychology, they are more empirical. They can more be analyzed through different measures.
Mm. Okay, I see.
So what fascinates people about psychology is that it's all around us and they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
They can see it and they themselves can make certain assumptions that can be right. Because a common thing people always believe that they are psychologists is that because they can't understand personality.
Mm-hmm.
They might not understand it to the degree of somebody who goes to school and those that kind of thing, but they might understand it to a degree of through the experience.
Mm-hmm.
They can understand or discern certain traits in personality and draw to their own conclusions,
Right.
whatever the conclusion may be. And more people are more fascinated with that part of psychology. But psychology is all around us in advertising in different parts, different
Mm.
parts of modern society.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Um. All right. That's a heavy stuff you just said there, but okay. So let's get into psychology and or the psychology of the survivor's guilt. Meaning, well, I'll just give you my what I see survivor's guilt as. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, say for an example, I guess you and your friend you're in this vehicle. Long story short, the vehicle crashes. Your friend dies. You survive. In that incident, you feel like I guess that's one of the emotions felt after the crash, or of the survivor's guilt is that you wish that you were the one that perished and your friend survived. What would you say? Why do why does or let me give you another a more let me give you another example. In fact, you were not in the crash. All right, like it's a friend of yours. Your friend passes away. The survivors the survivors guilt kicks in. You feel like that should have been you, even though the person would have passed due to whatever. You feel like that should have been you. What are your
Or,
what are
or,
your
or you might even feel, or you might even think that you should have been there and if you were there, you could have prevented it from happening
that as
or
well
altered it that it would be so bad.
that as well.
Um, in the first scenario of you being there, because you have three scenarios, you have a scenario of you being there,
Mm,
and then a scenario of you not being there but wish you were in the place of the person,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
the third scenario that you wish that you were there to wish that you could have prevented it, right?
mm,
Now, in the first scenario of you were there and you wish it was you, or anything that when it comes to things like that, you have what you call trauma, right?
mm,
Trauma is something that goes on both in the mind and the body. Because when it comes to psychology doesn't only study the mind. It studies how the mind and the body are interconnected.
mm,
Now,
mm.
some psychologists believe that it is only the mind. Some believe because and some believe that it's only the body that is the body and there's nothing such as the mind.
So
It's
what
only
what do
the
you
body.
believe? What do you believe?
I believe that there is a connection between the two,
Mm-hmm.
which is the most popular, not the most popular, but the more popular belief in psychology. Then after that would be that people believe that it is entirely the body. Then lastly is the mind.
The mind
The
one.
mind one, the mind one is more on a philosophical basis, coming from the Rene Descartes. I'm sure you know that you've heard that already. I think, therefore I am.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. I've heard that quote
Yeah,
before.
yeah. But coming back to what I said, when it comes to trauma,
Mm-hmm.
when something happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're put into a state of flight, 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 fight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either you run, you fight, or you freeze in
Mm-hmm.
that position.
Right.
You know, you know. For example, if a deer is walking in the forest
Mm-hmm.
and it has a twig break, and then it smells a predator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It at that moment, its body goes into a sense of fight or freeze. Either it runs,
Mm-hmm.
it it um it fights the predator,
Mm-hmm.
or if the predator is like the danger level, the threat level is so great, it might just freeze. Now
Mm-hmm.
the reason why animals freeze is that's a defense mechanism. For example, when you freeze, the predators normally believe that the animal is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So
Like the
they will
roaches.
carry, yeah. So they will carry the animal away, and whilst the predator being distracted, thinking that the animal is dead, it could take advantage in that moment and just get up and just start running. And
Mm-hmm.
because of the time difference of the predator reacting to run, it will get a little distance enough to escape. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the predator just eat it one time, but that's one of the reasons of the freeze. And sometimes certain predators don't attack dead animals.
Yeah, 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 like brown
So now,
bears.
so now, the difference between us and a deer, for example, right?
Right.
With the animals, when they go into that state,
Right.
with the with them, when the scenario is over and they have escaped, they are not traumatized because is their body and their mind is set up in such a way as if like they would have put that behind them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But us as human beings, we are we are more we have a better cognitive we have a higher cognition than animals. We are more intelligent than them.
Mm-hmm.
So when an event happens, we don't, especially a traumatic one,
Mm-hmm.
one that is very serious, a life threatening thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just go behind our head. We think
Mm-hmm.
upon it comes back to us by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things happen, and then this memory, it haunts us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So now, if the scenario of the person being there, this person becomes traumatized
Right.
because when they are in the car accident, their body automatically goes into this fight, flight, or freeze mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
and that puts a certain pressure upon the body and a pressure upon the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now, after this scenario, all different kinds of thoughts would flood through the person's mind of how it doesn't necessarily the survivor's guilt doesn't start at there. It starts of how could I have prevented that situation from
From happening.
happening,
Mm-hmm.
because we have evolved in such a way,
Mm-hmm.
animals have evolved in such a way in the direction of survival. So prevention is better than cure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm. Right.
first thoughts that would come to our mind is not the guilt part, but how could I have prevented that from happening?
Mm-hmm.
For example, and then our body does this certain of these things subconsciously. For example, if I walk in a dark alleyway and and then I get robbed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I walk in by whenever I dark alleyway. It's like this fear. It's like the subconscious brings that back. You know,
Right, right,
it,
right,
it
right.
is repressed. Yeah, it is repressed, meaning that it is shackled down by the subconscious in my daily life. But when I'm placed in that same scenario again,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like that what is repressed, what is shackled out, it comes to back to the consciousness. I might not vividly remember the incident,
Mm-hmm.
but my subconscious remembers that, and it brings it back. And I say, boy, I just have a bad feeling about that alleyway. You know, you
Mm.
can see that from children from when they are young, they might be traumatized and not remember what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
But even as they are older as adults, they still have that phobia or pathology that they
Mm-hmm.
might develop because of what happened to them.
What
You
is
know, so
what is pathology?
pathology is like psychotic behavior, neurotic behavior, like anything like a madness, because
Mm-hmm.
they have different levels, they have different types of madness. They have psychotic behavior,
Mm-hmm.
they have neurotic, and they have, yeah, psychotic and neurotic. Neurotic is like a problem in the brain.
Like an
The
actual
person,
problem?
yeah, actual problem in the person's brain. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whether they are born if a natural defect or whatever accident, is in the brain. And
Mm-hmm.
psychotic is because of certain events that may happen to them in the past,
Mm-hmm.
or or um or imbalances, hormonal imbalances in the body, which will give them mood swings, and not allow them to control their emotions like a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
So 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 coming back to the accident, that person, the first the first thing, how could I prevented that from happening?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a car accident and what happened because they did not have seat belts. The next time that person enters, if they ever choose to enter a vehicle again, because some people are so traumatized,
True.
they might not even want to enter a vehicle again.
Mm-hmm.
If that person wants to enter a vehicle again, they will remember, boy, I need to put on my seat belts, you know, because the last
Jeez.
time, the mind is working, the last time this happened, whatever. Now, Now, after that initial stage, it has worked itself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then comes the loss the loss factor, because after such an event like that, something is always lost. Whether you get injured and your health is lost, or the death of the friend,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point in time is where guilt, depression, and depression, these two main emotions
Mm-hmm.
come in, and
Right.
a little drop out of hate, of self hate, because they might
Mm-hmm.
hate themselves for not being able. So
Mm-hmm.
now it might start at any of these 3 points, but most times it might start with a depression, because when you lose something that is valuable, you most times go into depression. So
Mm-hmm.
this person is depressed and they are saddened by the fact that they have lost their health, they have
Mm-hmm.
lost their friend, lost
Mm-hmm.
their vehicle,
Right.
lost whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will most times, then after that, after depression, trickle down to the guilt. This person mi- this person might say, um I lost. Now the guilt is happens more strongly when it's outward guilt. If it's damage to ourselves, like a personal infliction, like I got damaged but everybody was alright, the guilt is a little lesser than if we had damaged somebody else and the person got, and then we are okay but the person died or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or they lost their limb or they got injured. That guilt is more critical because as human beings we are social beings, and and again we have evolved that we want to take care of of people that we value,
Mm-hmm.
you know because in in at the back of our mind there is this conflict of us against them, and every instance where we are placed in scenario with people, we draw the line of friend or foe.
Mm-hmm.
Are you with me or against me? So now people who we think that are friend and who have or benefit to us, we have a liking towards these people, and we want to concretize that support network.
Right.
So now if we destroy that support network, we are at a disadvantage. The same way when man was evolving and the society was evolving. If you're always robbing and you're always killing and being a nuisance in society,
Mm-hmm.
they would have to destroy you because you're hindering the development of
Development.
the species.
Okay.
You know. So now the same way us as human beings in our social behavior, we want to concretize relationships that we think is beneficial to us. Whether in truth or in fact that it is beneficial is up for debate. But once we think that it is beneficial to us,
Mm-hmm.
we try to develop it to the best of our ability. Now, when we realize that this person is damaged, whether it be our fault or not, we come boy as we come back to the how could have I prevented this?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it might be in a scenario that we there is nothing that we could
Could have
have
done.
done, but because our mind is so structured to prevention is better than cure,
Mm-hmm.
we will try our best to imagine scenarios in which we could have prevented this from happening.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and then we see, and then in doing that, we realize we come to the conclusion, not all the time, but a lot of people would come to the conclusion that I'm inadequate, I'm not enough, and that's when self-hatred, self-loathing comes in. They start to hate themselves for not being able to do enough. They start feeling depressed.
Right.
The guilt comes upon them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now with these people, um to overcome this thing, the is not the depression that needs to be tackled, not the pain, not any of it, is the trauma. The trauma
The
is the
trauma
thing that
is the core.
the trauma
Is the
is
problem.
the yeah, the trauma is the problem. Now if the trauma is lessened, the person will understand that the weight of the situation
Mm-hmm.
will be lighter, and then you could move into the different areas of the depression,
Mm-hmm.
and the different other spectrums of things. Now, to the second scenario of the person was not there, but they wish they were there.
Mm-hmm.
It all boils down to the same analysis I gave before,
Mm-hmm.
but just the part of in the same thing of the prevention. They look at the way in which that could have been prevented. They want the best for the valued friend, so
Mm-hmm.
they try to put themselves in a scenario. It's the same thing, but it's just that the presence was not actually there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the third scenario is a little different. When they wish that if they were there, they could have prevented things from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that scenario, everything is the same, but what is just different is that um, we believe we as human beings we have a habit of overestimating ourselves.
Mm. Okay.
You know, we feel as if like we can do beyond the normal human expectation. We don't
Right.
understand the seriousness of situations until we are faced with it. So somebody who's that is somebody that most times does not critically understand the seriousness of what may have happened, or whatever the scenario case may be. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
so they overestimate themselves, and they don't really fully understand the reality of what may have occurred. So
Mm-hmm.
they would see themselves as some invincible superhero, but not really admitting to themselves that as a human being they themselves have certain limits, and they may have even caused the situation to be worsened if they were there. God forbid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. So let me ask you. You mentioned tackling the like trauma, like in an event like that, such as that. You mentioned
Yeah.
tackling trauma first. So what made you say that? Is it a case where what happens often is that trauma isn't really tackled as the source? Is something else focused on as opposed to the main problem? Like generally speaking.
Well, well, any trained therapy, well, any therapy that knows what he is doing, because you can be trained but
Mhm.
still want to do your own thing or you not be aware of it. Any therapist that know what he is doing
Mhm.
would go about tackling the trauma. Now the way in which they will tackle the trauma would vary between the person because there are different models of therapy, different
Mhm.
ways people would go about it.
I
You
see.
know,
So.
so depending on the module a person would use,
Mhm.
they would go about it differently. But the best place to start is with the trauma. Now, what the common mistake people people do, and
Mhm.
they see a problem,
Right.
they then look to see what is the deeper problem, you know. For example, this person who has self hatred,
Mhm.
the bigger problem would be suicide,
Mhm.
suicide, being
Right.
antisocial behaviors,
Mhm. Mhm.
and these certain other negative factors. These are like the fruits of of the entire situation.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
you need to get to the root of what really happened, which is the trauma, which is where everything else is stemming from.
Mm. Okay. I see. So in your studies in particular, is are you able to diverse into get into, sorry, the world of, I wanted to say divulge. Are you able to get into the world of therapy, or is it only or would it be for something else?
Well, first of all I telling you there is not nothing I learned in university. Is my personal
Your
studies
personal
of me
studies.
reading my book on the sidelines. You know,
Mm-hmm. Okay, 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 I get
you
it.
know, I always said you should never see university as a place for you to learn. You should just see it as a place for you to get a degree.
Mm.
Learning must always start on a personal level of what you taking a interest of going and read other things and
Mm.
read things beyond what is expected of you. Not to pass the exam with flying colors and say you get an A at the
Mm-hmm,
end.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if you have a passion for something, you should put interest into it to become good at it or great at it
I
to
see.
unlock your potential.
Your true potential.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So you mentioned, I don't know. It's like ever since you mentioned trauma, my thoughts are just going all over. But I'll just so that we can move on. I'll just wrap it up. Wrap up the survivor's guild nicely. I do want to touch on it again in the future though. So um, heads up for that. But yes, now to my question, my last question to close everything off. Well, not everything, just the survivor's guilt chamber. Um, do you think like the black community in general, like trauma, is is a big issue and is generally overlooked? I say that because
Well,
you have people like I'm not too sure if you're acquainted with Kevin Samuels. Do you know who he is?
no, no, I don't know.
Okay, he's basically an image consultant, and um, in most of his interviews he does with people who are looking to become the best image of themselves, is
Mm.
he recommends therapy to them, and most of the people he interviews are black. So
Okay.
that that's
So,
that
so
that's what
yeah.
motivated that's what
From
motivated my question, and you bringing it up in your analysis.
Um, well, trauma is a natural thing.
Okay.
Trauma is a natural thing. For example, everybody is traumatized, but at different levels. What we normally refer to as trauma is a radical extent, you know. But for example, what in psychology we refer to as repression, that's a certain level of trauma. For example,
Mhm.
if when you're young and then you go into a supermarket and every time you go there you cry and your mother beat you and
Mhm.
and you
Mhm.
never do it again, that's a certain form of trauma, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
But what we would normally highlight as trauma is PTSD, things that come from people that come from war or terrible situations.
Right. Right. Right.
The problem that is faced when it comes to situations like that
Mhm.
is people don't normally, well, depending on the part of world you are, economic status and different other things that play a role.
Mhm.
You might not really seek to therapy as a source to relieve that burden on your life, you know. Now,
Okay.
coming to what you said about the person Adams, he uses what you refer to as an existential module of psychology, where you tell people that they can become more than what they are now once they put deliberate effort into it.
Mhm.
That's not a bad style. But when it comes to trauma, people who are traumatized, it could work, but it just takes a lot of time. But they have different models. It depends on the proficiency of the therapist, how good he is at what he does.
Okay.
Uh, it all depends on the therapist. Not really the style, but the person, you know, and
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
well that they could understand the patient, and and how comfortable the patient is with that person. Because the therapist could try his best and be the best person out there, but if the person
Mhm.
themselves is that just doesn't like the person, just
Mhm.
doesn't like the
Mhm. Mhm.
therapist,
Mhm.
it won't work as well. So it has different dynamics to go into it, whether the person will be healed or become better from that trauma.
Okay.
Then there's the method.
I see. Yeah, you should be a therapist, man.
What I'm going to be one, eh?
Really?
That's one of the things that I'm going to do. That's one of them.
Become okay. I see. So you plan on like staying here to do it, or is that something you're
So,
looking to? Mm. Sorry, I think your mic was out a bit. Can you hear me?
yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Okay. Yeah. So you heard the
Yeah,
question I asked?
yeah. I had a question. I had a question.
Mm, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I don't plan to stay in Central when I get
Mm. Okay. So. Mm.
about 4 to 5 years. Then after I'll go to a larger country. You
Okay.
know, because I want to work at for, I don't want to be a therapist. That's the big thing.
Hold on. Your mic is cutting off, so I'm not. We're not hearing everything you're saying.
Oh, are you hearing me better now?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. Uh, the base of what I want to become is a therapist. But
Okay.
other than that, I want to be a lecturer at a 10-year lecturer. You need to be a 10. That's when you work in a university for a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
Different universities have different lengths. Some 10, some 12,
Right.
whatever the
Right. Right.
case may be.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then what that qualifies you for is for you to be able to do research.
Mhm. Mhm.
Research, because for you to do any type of research in psychology, you need to be a, 10 or any research at all.
Mhm.
I believe you either need to be that, or you need to have a doctorate in the field,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know.
Okay.
So I plan to go overseas and become lecturer in a university,
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
could be able to do that. And I also want to be a writer because currently writing two books right now.
Mm.
Two books, so
Okay. 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 So when I asked you to call the podcast, your eyes must have, beamed.
Yeah.
Free promo. Okay, alright. You want to give a little teaser for the books or that's for later?
Well, I don't think they're coming out anytime soon because it's
Okay.
taking me. Because I need to take my time with them
Okay,
because
I understand.
the field that I'm writing in, you need to be very concise in what you're saying, and you need to make sure you know what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
because you can be criticized and destroyed, and your career could be destroyed by people who are opposing your opinion.
Right.
So your whatever idea that you're putting out there need to be logically sound and
Okay.
needs to make sense. To
Okay.
make sense. Yeah.
Alright. Well, yeah.
But the
Mm-hmm.
but but the books, the one of them is named Why Be a Christian.
Okay.
It's a theological book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not using any scriptures or Bible references, at least not at the beginning, but probably to the latter
Mm-hmm.
end of
Mm-hmm.
the book.
Okay.
But it's a philosophical um argument
Mm-hmm.
of why somebody should believe in God
Mm-hmm.
and be a Christian. It's not um tied to any particular doctrine of it, or why should somebody be a Catholic or
Mm-hmm.
A Seventh Day Adventist or
Mm-hmm.
Protestant. It's not really like that, but it's more as Christianity in general.
In
Because
general.
I want the reader base to be from any background. I don't want to make
Mm-hmm.
it biased.
Okay, I
And
understand.
the other one is Man and Himself. That's a philosophical psychological book about human perception, perception and life.
Right.
And to the latter end of my argument of how I believe people should live,
Mm-hmm.
drawing
Mm-hmm.
from Stoic and Taoist
Mm-hmm.
Buddhist beliefs of how I believe people should live, with a little drop of Christianity, but it's more towards Stoic
Mm-hmm. Oh wait, you cut off for a bit there. Alright. We're back, right? Okay.
Yeah, I changed the laptop. Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, it's not about that. So let's continue.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
you can continue what you were saying.
Um, well, I was saying that in the book Man and Himself,
Mm-hmm.
it's a philosophical, psychological book about man perception, reality, and how I believe man should cope with the affairs of life.
Okay.
In my argument towards the end of the book of how I believe man should work, it should cope with the affairs of life is taken more from a stoic Taoist belief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from Stoicism, basically the belief that having a solid and firm mindset despite the odds,
Mm-hmm.
and the Taoist Buddhist belief of having balance and having a certain mindset of serenity,
Mm-hmm.
having basically a mindset of flowing like water.
Right.
So to have it, so in having both a mindset of knowing when to be as solid as rock, like the Stoic,
Mm-hmm.
and to um as fluid as water,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that's what I'm really aiming at. But throughout my main theory is man lives in an us against them mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and individual to a collective and back and forth. We mean us as individuals, we are influenced by the collective, the majority of the people around us,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have an impact against them. So I I hit it off in the belief of there is both an influence
Mm-hmm.
by the from the collective, and but at the same time there is will. Like Friedrich Nietzsche said, will to power.
Mm-hmm.
This inner
Mm-hmm.
force that wants to be individuals, that wants to us to be who we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Okay.
So, yeah. So yes.
I see. Well, I'm
Yes.
looking forward. I don't know. It just came as a surprise to me. Okay, that's really cool, man. Um. Okay, so I guess with that we segue into the imposter syndrome. Has that ever hit you personally? The imposter syndrome?
Well, well, I I've seen people. Well, you should tell people what the imposter syndrome is
Before we even
before we talk about it.
um
Yeah.
okay, imposter syndrome. My understanding is that um the imposter syndrome. Sometimes you end up doing things or acting a certain way that isn't really in line with what you believe your character to be. That's how that's how I
Mm,
that's how I see the imposter syndrome.
yeah.
So,
Because
mm,
with the imposter syndrome, the baseline is identity. You
mm,
know.
mm,
Now, identity is not just it's something I certain concepts I've been meditating on for adequate amount of time. Some for years,
mm,
some just recently started. There's
mm,
certain things that I've been thinking about. Now,
right,
when it comes to identity, identity is on different dimensions, because with identity is who I believe myself to be,
mm,
who others, who people who are close to me, that I think important believe me to be,
mm,
who the stranger believes me to be, who I want them to think me as, who I know that they will see me as despite what I will do. If
mm,
I this goes into different spectrums, and different things affect it.
mm,
Now, somebody who's going through that imposter syndrome, they have a frail identity of who they are, both in the understanding of who they are as an individual
mm,
and who they, like coming back to what I was saying in my idea, my theory
mm,
of the individual and the collective.
right,
As an individual, they see themselves, they don't know who they are and who they want to be,
mm,
and and in the collective eyes they feel as an they play this imposter role because they want to
fit in, mm,
fit in the frame of what society wants them to be.
mm,
We see this a lot in the popular black culture
mm,
of the pop stars and the rappers, that that that
mm,
that, that, that a lot of people want to fit in this certain frame that is out there of how that's what makes being secular very enticing because everyone is doing it.
mm,
So so there is this individual level of I don't know who I am, or I'm not even interested in knowing who I am,
okay,
and and what I want to achieve, if I want to achieve anything, you know. And there is this struggle between, and there is this collective force beating down on this weakened identity, saying be like this, like a slave master mentality, you know.
okay.
So
So,
now, so
so
yeah.
as you mentioned slave mentality, I can't help but think it comes off as it's being forced down our throats.
Well, yes, to a certain degree, because they are what you call socialization.
Okay.
Depending on your culture, your upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
your culture, the place you're born,
Mm-hmm.
you are socialized in a certain way to become who you are today.
Okay,
Now,
that's fair.
now, certain people believe that socialization is deterministic, meaning that because you're socialized in a certain way, you must become like that.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people believe that like me, that despite what you are socialized, there's still the will,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
still the will, and there's a certain level of autonomy that you as the individual, though you are socialized in a certain way, when you come to us, when you have a certain amount of experience, not necessarily of intellect or anything, but experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Experience can be taken in different perspectives. That's why I use that word. Is
It's
vague,
broad.
but at the same time it's broad.
Yeah.
It's broad.
Okay.
Experience in life. So
Mm-hmm.
you can now choose to become who you want to be, despite the society you're in. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you might be in a solidly bombarding society like Islam,
Okay.
Islamic society.
Interesting example.
Despite death,
Mm-hmm.
you can still choose to be who you choose to be,
Right.
whether it be a Christian, atheist, homosexual, or trans,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever that level of autonomy comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in psychology, they have different takes on this, but there's something called self-actualization.
Okay.
That's when the individual develops through experience and through some certain biological facets of the mind, because your brain develops as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, this person wants to become who they are. Now, a lot of individuals, most individuals hit that stage when they are beginning to become adults.
Right.
You know, how for a lot of people this is stunted by the collective, by the influence of the collective on them, that they are just set in that frame and they just choose to stay within that frame.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
but there's the minority that choose to become self-actualized, and they go out and be who they want to be or whatever, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be the for their benefit or their detriment. Depends on what they choose. You know,
Okay.
there's no one way to sling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now with this person who sees themselves as this imposter, their identity is very fragile. You know,
Right.
they don't know who they are, and the collective is bombarding them with who they should be, and despite of their opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How these persons, for them to come out of this, they now need to need to become self-actualized. Now, to do that, you need to have a certain level of of esteem for yourself,
Okay.
um, a certain
Mm-hmm.
environment. Because if you stay in a toxic, down pressing environment,
Mm-hmm.
you will always it will be more difficult for you to rise up.
Okay.
It's not impossible, because certain circumstances prevent us from going to a better environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it is optimal for you to leave a toxic down-pressing environment
Mm-hmm.
to go to uplift main environment that would with people that will help you. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now this person who is struggling with their identity, they need to become more auton- atomic. But the thing about them, they need to break out of the frame society has put them in, and they have accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be the crowd they are associating themselves with, whatever, because if they are associating if pairs that will influence them in a negative direction to do things that would tackle them to where they are, they need to break out of that. And not all the time that is easy. Also depending on whatever the circumstances.
Right. Right. Right.
Now, the thing about the thing about the imposter syndrome, it can swing in three directions. Either you see yourself as an imposter, and society doesn't know that, the collective doesn't know that, or the collective, or you think you are full people, but the collective has seen you as an imposter. They know that you're fake.
Ah.
You know.
Okay.
And there's this third dimension of, you know that you're fake, they know that you're fake, but you just go with it.
So both, were you saying
So
both sides know that you're fake, but you just going with it?
you just go in with it. Just go in with it, because it's as if like you're meeting in a rock and a hard place, and you can't think of a way out. You know, can't think of a way out. It's like this it's like many of these celebrities that that put themselves out as a certain persona, and when they are found out to be fake, they don't change. They just go with it.
Go with it.
It's as if like
Yeah.
it has become so normal for them. So normal for them, you know. They just go with it.
Yeah, everyone forgets about
That's
it after a
not
while.
done
So,
skill.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We
You're
just
about to say something?
continue. Yeah. So now at the first level, when you see yourself as an imposter, but society doesn't see you as that, but they just think that you're normal, you're being you. That's a good place. That's optimal place among the other the three. That's a good place, because you alone know that you're fake, and you can work on that.
Right. Right.
No, you can work on that. Now it becomes tricky. The worst place to be, the worst place to be is the part when you think everybody is full, but they're not full. We'll come back to that part.
Okay.
You know, that part for us, because that's the most dangerous part, because you don't even know that you're in the pit. You know, but you think everything is alright. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the first scenario, you just need to work on yourself, and nobody doesn't necessarily know,
Yeah. Right.
but I know you could go ahead with it. Now there is this there is this there's this second the third part of you knowing that you are imposter, and the people knowing that, the collective knowing that. It's a bit hard to turn around, you know, because it takes a lot of, I would say, balls, you know, but it's easier because you have a reason.
Right.
You can find a reason and find strength in that reason, whether the reason being, I was doing this, living this certain lifestyle, I could change, you know. I would think better of myself, and other people would think better of me, you know, and then you could go with that. But a lot of people, it's like you are either in the extreme of change, or in the extreme of staying the same. You know, it's like with that scenario, there's no real middle ground about it.
Right.
And if the second one, I come to a close, if the second one where you don't know, you don't know that they know that you fake. You know, that one is very difficult, you know, because you're in the pit, you don't know you're in the pit, and then
Right.
you dig in yourself a
Deeper.
deeper grave. You're digging deeper. Yeah, that one is very complicated. Now the thing with this one is, the truth will find its way to you. You know,
Okay.
but the truth will find you, because eventually somebody will come to you and say, you see, you're not who you say you are, you know. And then after that your identity will just become fractured, and you just realize, oh boy, they know the truth now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, why that's why it's always good to be honest
Up until
with
front.
yourself,
Okay.
and to work on who you want to be. You know, not to, in the cliche of becoming successful. It has that to do, but in the cliche of being able to look at yourself in the mirror, accept yourself, because a lot of people don't accept themselves because they don't accept the identity and the persona that they're allowing people to see of themselves. You know, and and that's very bad, you know. That's very
Mm,
bad.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's already quarter past.
Uh, we might have to do a
Yeah,
second session or
definitely.
so. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I will definitely because
Yeah.
I have this what is it called, psychology, um like a string of psychology episodes working on. So I would have a
Okay.
this is a second installment to, I think I'll make it a seven parts.
Mm.
So in my next episode I think I'll have you as well as a few other guests who are just as passionate as psychology just as you are,
Okay.
and one of which I think he is pursuing his BSc, yeah, just as you, on here as well,
Okay.
so we could thrash out, you know, and just discuss,
Okay.
you know. But I will say, I really tonight it was really informative for me. And I've been meaning to upload
Okay.
something of more on the something of substance on the side of substance on onto
Okay.
the channel,
Okay.
as well as
Happy that you enjoyed it.
yeah man,
It
yeah
was
man.
a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
You enjoyed it. You enjoyed it.
It was a
Okay,
pleasure.
okay. I'm glad you enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to having you on here, not only for psychology but for other topics as well. Once you're open to it, that is. Um,
Okay, no problem.
with that said, guys,
Yeah.
what's up?
Once that time is there, you there.
Pardon me? How long have we been on air? Well, not on air, but recording.
No, I said like once that time is available,
Ah, okay,
I'll be here. Yeah,
okay.
once that time is available.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. With that said, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode. This episode is a bit special, since we went live on Saturday. That was the 15th. This episode is an airdrop episode, more of a care package kind of thing to keep you, I guess, in the loop. With that said, please remember that you don't have to stare at the screen and listen to us. You could always play us while you're washing dishes, folding clothes, doing whatever. Um, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the week.